press play because it's time to get ready for Austin Talks! Hey everybody, how's it going? And welcome back to another fantastic episode of Austin Talks! So, considering last week was Thanksgiving, where we sat around, ate a bunch of shitty food, and just laid down all the time, this episode is going to be about exercise. So, put on your training wheels, buckle down, and let the show begin! So, a few days ago when I was walking to work, I noticed across the street just a couple of kids hanging out on their bikes. Wait, it's 2018. Kids shouldn't be on their bikes. They should be inside playing Fortnite on their phones. I'm not sponsored by Fortnite. But it wasn't that weird because it reminded me of a time when I was a troublemaking bike-riding little rascal. Flashback noises! A good while ago, back in 2007, before the world was on fire and people were freaking out about who's offending who, life was simpler. Well, not too much simpler because the world was still on fire and people were still bitching about stuff, but I digress. I had a little crew. We didn't have much of a name for the crew, but it consisted of my two 15-year-old friends, Quan and Lingo. Yes, those are their real names. It was Miami in the early 2000s. People needed to be creative. Now, between my two 15-year-old friends and me, only being 11 at the time, they decided to take me under their wings and teach me how to ride bikes like a pro, and other illegal things I choose not to mention here. As a side note, for any of you that know me, you've probably seen that when I want to learn a skill, I will stop at nothing! Almost nothing, until I have become the best I can be at it. In this situation, the same concept came with biking. After seeing Lingo do a wheelie for 2 whole blocks, I was more than determined to become as good as he was. But from what they informed me, I needed a lot of practice before I got that good. So some sessions up and down the street were expected. You know, taking off your training wheels, bumpy wheelies, falling off your bike a bunch of times. The good old days. However, one day while we were getting Jamaican sodas down at the local 7-Eleven, I overheard Lingo and Quan mention that they were going to go to the bike park near our houses. Now, I didn't know that there were bike courses you can go on in the local parks, nor did I know that they had difficulty levels. I was an ignorant child at 11, but also being ignorant, I was also very brave. So I was basically able to survive anything that was thrown at me. Or so I thought. When I asked if I can come along, both of them were just a tad bit hesitant to consider my joining. But after a few seconds, they decided to let me come with them. After Jamaican sodas and Subway, we went to the park where, when you went in, there was a sign before going into the courses that had a color chart for the different difficulties they offered. Blue being one of the easier courses with little hills and turns for beginners, and then you have the red and black courses, which were basically for people who are death riders and have already wrote their wills. I didn't even know what a will was. Sadly enough, I didn't see that sign. Instead, I just saw a little opening to a course called Death's Valley. Death's Valley. Such a relaxing term. And I thought to myself, if I survive Death's Valley, I'll be a biking pro. Now, you might be asking, where's Quan and Lingo in all this? Well, they were there, just not doing anything to stop me from killing myself, because that's what friends are for. They are there to watch you burn and stare at your ashes. When we entered the course, Quan and Lingo shot off in front of me like a bunch of roadrunners. And me, being the safety chaser I am, I just decided to take my time and have fun on the course. I knew they were much better than me, so, I didn't really expect anything, but they were probably doing cool tricks and going really fast, like some real X Games shit. But there was definitely a moment when I got to the top of a big hill, and I was way too scared to go down. Like, come on, it's a big old hill, I'm a tiny kid, I feel like I'm gonna die. But the other bikers cheered me on, so I sucked up all the fear I had, turned that shit into liquid bravery, drank it down like a shot of whiskey, and I threw myself down that hill. And wouldn't you know it, I busted my ass, rolling and tumbling and gravel and blood everywhere. And yeah, I remember that. It sucked. But I picked myself up and rode my injured ass all the way towards the next few obstacles. Very slowly. On my way towards the end of the course, I ran into a pair of bikes that resembled Quan and Lingo's. In my head, I thought they both crashed and hurt themselves. So obviously I sped up and I ended up continuing down the course to find that they were deeper into the forest, far away from their bikes and far away from the trail. Turns out their real intention for coming into the course was so they can smoke some weed, which at the time was probably one of the most dangerous drugs anybody could do for some reason. You know, I was one of those kids who saw the Dare commercials and such, so what would any kid in my shoes do if you found your friend smoking pot in the forest? You fucking join him, that's what you do. You don't want to be a fucking pansy. Don't be a baby, don't be a snitch. You join in that shit, get on that dang kush, baby. Until you guys get caught by the park ranger. Then you guys have to ride your bikes faster than an Olympic athlete on steroids. Not that I'm accusing anybody or anything. The happy ending to the story is that we got the fuck out of there and rode the rest of the course to victory. Sure, we all got a couple scrapes and bruises, but we got to smoke some dank kush and we stayed best friends. Until a few years later when those assholes got me into some pretty deep trouble, which is probably a story for another day. For now, I'll leave you guys with this. Always make sure to stay away from strangers and don't steal shit that isn't yours. This isn't a message pertaining to the story. I just want to give you guys a good message for the day. Well, make sure to follow me on Instagram and Twitter to keep up with all the boring shit I do in my life. And I'll see you guys on the next episode of Austin Talks. But seriously though, don't steal shit from people. It's not fucking cool. Nobody likes it. Unless you steal from like a big company. And that's okay. At least I think so. Fuck it. Just don't steal. Don't get in trouble. It's not fun. Jail's not pretty. It's not. It's cold. They got shitty bologna sandwiches. Nobody likes that shit.